Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Move Plus. So looking at 2 minutes of cardio of your choice to start things up. So what we're gonna do is gonna combine two things. So 20 seconds of just running on the spot, straight forward, and then 20 seconds of plate hops, just going back and forth on that. And we just go back and forth between those two movements until that 2 minutes is up. The following 3 minutes, we're gonna do as many rounds as we can fit in of 10 suitcase lunges, then going into 10 curl and press, and then moving into 10 up downs. Okay, so that's the warm up. You good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, starting in 10. So 2 minutes of cardio of your choice. You can do what we're doing, or you can make up your own deal. That's cool too. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So 20-second blocks of this is what we're gonna do, just to kind of divide it up evenly. So running on the spot doesn't necessarily have to be a high knee or a high heel, but you can mix that stuff in if you want to. The whole idea here is just nice, simple movements just to start the engine and get things fired up. 3, 2, 1. So going to plate hops now. So with this one, guys, you don't have to necessarily use an actual weightlifting plate. You might just have a step or something like that. Just looking at a nice low height that we can continuously bounce back and forth between. And you don't have to do a stand up like we would for a box jump. It's literally just a rebound back off. 3, 2, 1. Going back to the run. So on both of these, we're gonna find that we're staying pretty well just on the balls of the feet. We're not getting those heels to touch the ground. This is gonna be actually some really good training to move towards things like skipping and double unders and build up that calf endurance. 3, 2, 1. So back on the plate hop. So into that second minute of the cardio block. You can see that with Em's feet, she's not only going kind of forwards, backwards, she's actually jumping the feet out a little bit. She's kind of working the shape of the plate there to her advantage and just getting a nice close bounce back and forth. 3, 2, 1, and back to running one more time. So once we finish this 2 minute block, guys, we've got that 3 minute block next, which is gonna be 10 suitcase lunges, 10 curl to press, 10 up downs, just moving at your own pace through that. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So back on the plate hops one last time. So you can see that Em's kind of got her eyes just slightly cast down. She's keeping a really close check on where that plate is. Last thing you want is to clip your toes and go for a tumble over the top. So making sure we kind of keep the center of your mass over the edge of the plate, and then the feet will just move back and forth. 3, 2, 1. All right, so moving to that 3 minute block now, we've got the suitcase lunges. So suitcase referring to the position of the weights. So that is by your sides, as you would with suitcases if you were walking through the airport or through the train station. And just going for a nice long step. Em's doing a forward stepping one. That's optional. You can go backward stepping, you can do walking. It's kind of up to you. Main thing is, as long as we get the knee to contact the ground and we keep the posture nice and tall. So once she hits 10, we're gonna move to the curl and press. So this is kind of like the strict brother of the clean and jerk sort of movement. Okay, rather than us using a big hip hinge and a big shrug and a lot of momentum and then re-dropping underneath, this is the more strict version. So we're going to basically bicep curl it up over the shoulders and then strict press out. So the entire time your body is going to stay nice and still. Once we finish this, we're going to go to 10 up downs. All right, so putting them off to the side. So with this one, just looking at going from a standing position to a push-up position and just going back and forth. You can work the kind of the width of the feet to your advantage by going narrow at the back so we can get a nice kind of tight gymnastics position. And then as we come up, depending on your hamstring flexibility, you can actually shoot a little wider with the feet if you need to. Em's keeping hers fairly narrow because she's got very flexible hamstrings, but if you feel like that's a really awkward position, like you're kind of having to tuck into a ball, send the feet a little wider and that will hopefully make it a little more comfortable for you. So 90 seconds to go. Might be able to get a second round of this out. Now as you are pushing back off this step, or maybe if you're stepping up out of a rear stepping lunge, the front foot is where all the action's happening. We want to make sure that heel is driving into the ground. If you feel your heel kind of bobbling or the weight is kind of pushing up to the forefoot, up on the toes there, try to plant that weight back down through the heels. As you move through this curl and press, guys, what you want to do is try to keep your upper arm kind of as still as you can for as long as you can through that curl. So I'm going to wait till the dumbbell gets to there before that elbow creeps through. So what we don't want to do is a swinging kind of a motion. We want to really get that bicep to work and then driving off in that strict press motion. So 40 more seconds. All right, so moving to the up downs. Really important that we don't let the hips kind of shoot through on this. You can see that Em's hitting that nice straight push-up position. If she is to go kind of loose or get over fatigued, starts dropping those hips, getting slack through there, she's going to feel a lot of pressure build up in that low back. So we want to stay real strong through the core, strong through the arms, strong through the lats, everything through there, and support that push-up position. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so that is the warm-up done, guys. Take some recovery time. We're looking at MOVE next. All right, guys, we're going to check out the MOVE workout now. So this one is a 10-minute AMRAP, which means it's just continuous for 10 minutes. You put the rests in where you need to, but we're trying to maximize the amount of work we fit in. We've got 3 movements we're going to cycle through. So we've got bent over rows, which is going to look like this. Okay, we then move into ground to overhead. So that can be a snatch motion or it can be a clean and press. Anything like that is fine as long as it goes from touching the ground to a full lockout overhead. And the last one we have is an up-down mountain climber. So what this one will do is we're going to go from upright to push-up position. We go 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 1 repetition, okay? And then she'd go back down again, so on and so forth. So 10 cycles of that. So all the movements are 10 reps a piece, 10-minute AMRAP. You good to go, Em?
Yep.
All right, starting in 10. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So with this being a 10-minute workout, guys, it's not super short, it's not super long either, so it's a little bit of a balancing act in as far as the speed you want to go at is one that you can maintain for a while, but you also don't want to pace it out too much. This is not a 20 or a 30-minute workout. We've got to give it a bit of speed, so you do need to get into that discomfort early, but try to think about checking in the time every time you complete either a movement or a round, and then start to do the math on like how many cycles could I fit in at this current speed. You might work on doing sort of a movement per minute, or maybe it's 2 movements per minute, depends on your fitness level, but try to get into a rhythm of executing the same amount of work consistently. That versus going really, really fast at the start and then blowing up at the end. I want to try and get that nice consistent workload. So as I said, 10 bent over rows, 10 ground to overhead, and then 10 of the up-down mountain climbers. So good mix of movements. You should find that there's not too much crossover with these. It's not like we're doing sort of push-ups into dips where it's going to be very much heavy on the one body part. And we're going to get a nice kind of mix of things. So it does mean you can kind of push the tempo a little bit more. My suggestion would be try to work through each individual movement as an unbroken set. And if you're going to take rests, have them in between the movements. That way you've just kind of got that little mental barrier. You can just kind of work to the end of that movement and know you're going to have a little bit of recovery. So let's have a look at these movements, guys. Bent over row, we've got the stance close, shins vertical, and the body is leaned right over until we're pretty much approaching parallel with the ground. You'll notice that Em's head and chest stays up at the end of her. She's not curling down or rounding off. As we move through the ground to overhead, we want to have the dumbbell contact the floor at the bottom and then hit a full lockout. So all of the joints stacked on top of each other from bottom to top and nice and controlled. Em's doing a single dumbbell, so she's going to be just alternating from right to left. You might be working with 2 kettlebells or 2 dumbbells or a backpack where you don't have to alternate. Can also do a single dumbbell holding onto each head of the dumbbell. All right, so moving to the up-down mountain climber. So this one, as I said, it's a 4 count at the bottom of each one. So can be tricky sometimes to keep the count on this one. It's always a good idea to kind of count out aloud so you know where you're up to. But we just want to make sure that whether it's receiving into that bottom position or it's moving the legs through the mountain climber, we want to stay tight through that midsection so we're not dropping or sagging, or we're not kind of pushing the hips up to the roof. Sometimes the body will do that to cheat a little bit, make it a little bit easier. It'll start creeping the feet in closer and closer, pushing the body back behind the hands a little bit more. So we want to make sure we're staying chest over hands and legs nice and extended. And then at the top, we want to get a full stand up as well. Nice, all right, so back to the start of the list, go to that bent over row. Now this one is to develop your lats and your upper back, guys, so all those pulling muscles. We want to make sure that you are visualizing those two shoulder blades pinching back together. So I always like to think I'm trying to get a really wide open chest at the peak of that pull, like I'm getting my elbows to pass the line of my body. And depending on how heavy you are going with this ground overhead, guys, you can do this snatch motion like she's doing, like a muscle snatch or a power snatch, or you can work with a clean and press where we would momentarily pause at the shoulder and then dip drive it off. That's completely up to you. You can do a mix of things as well. You might find you start with the snatch, and then as fatigue creeps in, you start to move to that clean and jerk motion. But they both have the same start and finish position. How you get there is kind of up to you. All right, so moving through the up-down mountain climber, you'll see that the leg motion at the bottom is quite quick. If she's having sort of a momentary breath, it's at the top there where she stands up, she can open her lungs up. She's kind of off tension in the bottom of it, she's kind of working hard the whole time. So we want to allow that moment just to get a nice big breath in, then we tension on as we come down. The knee's going to pop up to about chest height, so try and get some good range through that hip. And trying to keep the torso as sort of as still as you can through the bottom of it. It'll probably rock forwards, backwards a little bit just with the leg motion, but as long as we're not kind of bobbling up and down. Okay, so just rolling over halfway now. Doing a good job, Em. Okay, downhill run. Now, one of the things you want to check in, this is really, really important as we get into these latter rounds, is that the back position never starts to curve off. When we get tired, start to end up kind of knees forward, head down. So you want to make sure you're always thinking about elongating from your pelvis right up to your head to get that body nice and long. It's going to be a very similar story when we do this hinge pattern for the grounder overhead. She comes down, she's not reaching there by curving over, she's moving the hips back, kind of halfway between like a squat and a deadlift, and that way she can generate a lot of force and that upswing, so it's coming up into a big shrug. The arm almost doesn't have to do anything at all. It's really just chasing the dumbbell up to a lockout. All right, so going through these ones again. Nice active shoulders. We're going to see her kind of pushing the ground away rather than slumping into her arms and her body kind of collapsing through. And the hand position we want to have right underneath the shoulders there. So if you generally tend to sit up wide, let's get them right underneath. Keep everything nice and narrow. Nice work, Em, doing good. About to come into the last 3 minutes. Okay, back to the rows. So if you're working with a single object, guys, try to touch it to sort of like the bottom of your sternum or near your belly button. If you're working with two, obviously we're going on the outside of the body there, think about wrists getting level with your ribs. That'll give you a good marker. The other way to think about it is just getting elbows past the back of you, pretty much, so they're behind you. And one thing that Em does really well through the bottom of this movement is she keeps the knees nice and flared open, so she's got that stance. It's kind of like a squat stance, maybe just a little bit wider, so she's got plenty of space to get the dumbbell through. But she never collapses in. She's always keeping it nice and pushed out. Got that really good external rotation at the hips. Okay, got about 2 minutes left. to try to match this same kind of hinge pattern that Em's doing. When she comes down, watch how little her knees bend as she moves from that kind of jackknife position. She's really getting the hamstrings to open up. So this is going to be good just to encourage a better flexibility in general, but it's also going to stop us from going into a really nasty kind of curled in, tucked position where we're kind of overloading the knees, the heels are lifting up. You want to try and keep your heels flat on the ground until you're ready to jump them out to that mountain climber. Okay, last 90 seconds. Em's pulling a straight line with that dumbbell, so she's basically going from in front of the shins straight at her belly button. And if she were to be too bent at the knees, she's going to have to kind of swing around them, which is not what we want. We want to be able to get a nice path straight against the line of gravity, so we're moving the rest of the body out of the way of that. Okay, 50 seconds left. Move to these up-down mountain climbers. Maybe you want to do a 4 count on each time. Last 20 seconds. And time. All right, so that is the move workout done, guys. Have a little recovery time. We have the finisher coming up next. Okay, guys, so it's time for the finisher now. We're going to look at some midline stability work. So we're going to be doing some planking. Now, this is going to be just on a 4-minute running clock, so it's kind of up to you to fit in as much work into that 4 minutes as you can. Take rest where you need to. We're probably going to work with like a 30 on, 10 off kind of a setup, and we're going to move through a couple of different variations. Now, you guys can pick one and do it the whole time, or you can follow along with us and do multiple different types. The first I'm going to go to is just a normal front plank on the forearm. So I'm going to chuck this timer on, starting in 10. And then we'll start off with that, and then we'll move through some different variations. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So on the forearms, on the balls of the feet there, body's nice and straight, nice and long. So thinking about head, shoulders, hips, knees, ankles, everything in one straight line. And it's not just your abs. We also want to think about sort of glutes, low back, quads, hip flexors, everything basically from ribs down to knees locking in place. As I mentioned, we're just going to work with like a 30 on, 10 off kind of a setup. That way we can kind of go through a few different versions. 3, 2, 1. So a little rest. So what we'll move to next is a side plank. So this is going to be getting into a little bit more of the obliques there, the side of the abs. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So same kind of principle, we're creating a nice long line through the body. We've just basically rolled on that same axis. The legs are nice and locked out. And again, everything from rib cage right down to the knees is locked in place and active. You find yourself kind of slumping at the hips or even just slumping at the shoulder. We want to be active through the shoulder and push the ground away. And we're keeping that head in a nice neutral position too. 3, 2, 1, and 10-second rest. So next one we'll go to is what we call like a back support or a back plank. So we're going to set the feet out in front, hands behind us. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So we're basically bridging the hips up nice and high. So this is going to have a bit of a different feel. You'll find the emphasis will be much more on the rear of the body rather than the abs in the front. And thinking about kind of pushing the ground away, trying to force that nice high hip position. 3, 2, 1, and resting, good. All right, we'll move to the other side plank now. So obviously we did one side, we'll switch to the other arm now. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So again, getting everything lined up nicely in one piece. Also notice that she's staying kind of flat to the front, so she's not sort of twisting the shoulders down or letting the hips roll one way or the other. If she were flat against a wall, she'd have her body kind of pinned flat against it. So we're trying to keep sort of a connection between the upper torso and then the pelvis as well. And resting. So we'll move back around to the front plank, guys. We can do this one on the knees if you're wanting to scale it. This might be a good one if you're wanting to just go for a longer hold, and go for it. You might be just trying to do the 4 minutes straight, and this might be a good variation for you. So we're essentially taking the same principles we had with the full length one, but just now shortening the lever. So from head down to knees, we're trying to make a nice straight line. But again, rib cage down to knees, everything's flexed in place. Nice active shoulders pushing the ground away. And resting. So we'll go front again. This time we're going to go into a top support, so there'll be arms stretched out. 3, 2, 1, and go for it. So this is a little bit more kind of gymnasticsy. This is going to get the arms and shoulders a little bit more involved. So if you're someone maybe working on things like push-ups, dips, even handstand sort of work, any kind of pressing, this can be good to get those shoulders a little bit more involved. You can see how active Em's shoulders are. It's almost to the point that we have a little bit of curvature here, like she's driving the ground away, and it almost creates like a hollow position. And resting, good. So we'll go side plank with the straight arm. Okay. So this is the same sort of deal. We've gone from the elbow side plank to now a fully extended arm side plank. Trying to work for that nice straightness through the whole body. And coming down. Alrighty, so that's our plank work, guys. That's your finisher done. Have a bit of a chill, and then we'll move into the cool down next. Alrighty, guys, so now that all the hard work's done, we're gonna bring things down a little bit with some stretching and some mobility. So first drill we're gonna do is the couch stretch. So a little bit of padding under the knee. We're gonna hook the back foot up behind us, and we're gonna hang it there. We're gonna do this for 45 seconds on each side. So a couple of key things we're gonna look for is nice and tall from that knee right up to the head, right? That's the main thing. If you find yourself that you're kind of crooked forward or like pitching forward and there's a bend at the hips, the main goal is to try and get that to open up. So maybe for you, if you're a little tight through there, holding onto the foot is going to be too much. You might just have your foot resting on some couch cushions or set up against a wall, but have your knee out a little bit so you can drop that foot down to an angle that allows you to open up into that tall position. It's no good for us if we're just kind of like leaning forward. We don't really get into that musculature at all. And we're also going to think about hips and shoulders being nice and square to the front, so you're not allowing yourself to twist any which way, changing sides. And it is important, guys, to have that little bit of padding under the knee, especially if you're on some harsh ground. Just allows us to sit in this mobility drill a little bit longer and be focusing more on how we're actually delivering it rather than just how much discomfort's in my knee. Now she's holding there, it'll be hard to see this on the camera, but what she's going to be doing is kind of tensing her butt and tensing her abs, so as if her hips are kind of pushing forward through the stretch. So it's going to run up the front of her thigh, up the front of her hip, and she'll just hold there for the 45 on each side. Three, 2, 1, and done. All right, so that's the first drill, guys. The second one, we've got a calf stretch. Now, you can do this one against a wall. That works really well. Just for the sake of you being able to see this a little bit easier, we're going to do it with a plate. Now, all Em's going to do is get the ball of her foot up on the plate and push her weight down into her heel. So again, we'll go 45 seconds each side. So this is about getting into the calf, a little bit of the Achilles, that sort of thing, trying to loosen it up. If you've been doing a lot of skipping, maybe a lot of running, a lot of things like up, downs, and burpees where we're kind of jumping the feet back, maybe box jumps, those calves are going to be working really hard, and so are the bottom of your feet. So we're just going to give them a little bit of love and open them up. And you notice that Em's kind of dipping the knee a little bit. She's trying to change the angles, go searching for some tightness that she can open up. You may possibly find that you actually feel this right up into the hamstring. If you're really tight, you can play around with kind of hinging forward a little bit. Just work with what you need to find those tight spots and loosen them up. As I said, we generally will do this against a wall, so you're going to kind of have the ball of your foot as high up the upright as you can, changing sides. But you can also do this kind of setup too, maybe use a step or something like that, and just getting the weight to push down into the heel as we stretch out that calf. So 20 more seconds. Feel free to kind of floss back and forth on it, whatever you find gets that to loosen up. 10 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, so those are the 2 mobility drills, guys. Try to run through them 3 or 4 times, get everything nice and feeling recovered after the workout. We will catch you next time. That's been your Move Plus workout.